welcome to everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm absolutely delighted to be discussing the human edge, leading sales teams that thrive in the age of AI. I'm joined by someone whose experience genuinely shapes how the world thinks about commercial leadership. Maria Bolden, welcome.
What a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's wonderful, Maria. Now, Maria has led global sales organizations at DuPont, advised C-suite leaders at Gartner for CSO, and today continues her work as a trusted executive advisor. Now, Maria, I want to jump in here because I saw on LinkedIn that you had posted this comment and I absolutely loved it. And I wanted to start unpacking it here on the show.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to remind people, this is going to be fast paced. And so please do connect with Maria. I've put the links in there, but also post your questions and I'll keep checking the comments and make sure that, you get your questions asked. So please do ensure that you post them. So Maria, first question, let's jump in there. Let's go for it. So, yes, you said on AI, said about AI won't lead your team for you. And I thought that was such an interesting comment. It really does get you to sit up and think. So, Maria, what's behind that? What are you seeing in the C-suite?
So something I'm seeing in the C-suite that seems to be carrying down through the rank and file all the way down to first line sales managers and first line marketing managers and others that have the privilege of leading commercial teams at the front of the leading edge, if you will, is this predisposition. You'll hear me refer to it several times, more than likely, to want to codify everything, to want to capture lightning in a bottle, script, automate, process oriented. And I'm not saying that any of that is bad. But the behavior I see is a lot of organizations pushing it to the point where they're trying to strip out any ability for someone to exercise judgment. And I can't begin to give you a count of the number of commercial teams I have seen that have lost their ability. It's atrophied their ability to actually exercise judgment and think about the current environment and what they should be doing, with the risk being in a never normal environment. Even if you are smart enough, data-driven enough, lucky enough to create the perfect playbook, the perfect sales management or commercial management execution plans, whatever, tomorrow you'll have to adapt them. And with all due respect to the best companies I've seen out there, I have not seen a one of them that has effectively created a dynamic tool that makes that adaptation that rapidly to equate to the rate of change today. Now, that's at the overall level. At the executive level, what I'm seeing, and I'm sorry, and I'm not saying this is ubiquitous, there are some C-suite executives doing this tremendously well. For most of you, I'm not seeing it. And I'm seeing a disassociation from their teams, or an overcompensation where they feel like they need to be right there all the time, almost doing their jobs for them. And for those of you that are on a plane right now as a C-suite executive on your way to your biggest customer or biggest prospect, trying to close a deal right now to get it in before fiscal year end, you're probably one of them. So there's a number of different messages to unpack there, but my comment about AI won't lead for you. There are people over-indexing on the ability for your AI capabilities to predict and lead in a way, or even manage in a way that strips out judgment empathy, and humanity. You can't go too far one way or the other, but people are missing that point every day.
I think it's really interesting. Yeah, there is a lot to unpack, and I thought of different things. I mean, one quote that I wanted to share with you was from the Adecco group that says that confidence in AI strategies among leaders has dropped from 69 to 58% in the last year. So signaling this anxiety around execution rather than vision. We have the vision of AI; it's going to solve everything, but the execution, it's misaligned, just as you've been talking about. And I certainly see this in CROs and CEOs that they're so excited about the speed of AI and they want to get it in everywhere. And they've been sold on all of these sales and Marco stack that's going to do all of these and shortcut everything like that. And they're missing that human element. And what I'm finding in kind of coaching a lot of the leaders is that critical thinking. When you ask them to back it up, or the why, or that wider concept of what is the impact on your customer, it's like the two things don't seem to meet.
Well, let's think about why that is. I mean, these are smart people, and they weren't just chosen randomly to be in the C-suite. These are people who are accomplished and brilliant and have conceptual capacity and EQ and usually everything else, the whole package, especially as challenging as is now to get those roles today. But, less than maybe a year or so ago, the pressure for a company to just say they're deploying AI, to just say, I mean, people were pounding their chest just to say that they did it. They weren't making any mention of what it was actually accomplishing for them. And there's Gartner data already that shows that 75% of AI programs that have been deployed have failed in trying to drive productivity. And in addition to that, they've driven maybe a 1% budget savings, which is, they're people looking for productivity and savings and much less growth. So, people have been burned by trying to get out there too fast with a tool that maybe isn't ready for prime time, or that they haven't vetted properly, and or with a deployment that isn't connected to their strategy in the first place. Yeah. So, from a C-suite standpoint, whether I'm all about failing fast or succeeding fast or getting out there ahead of your competitors and, driving stock prices and things like that, and managing your messages to your board and to Wall Street and everybody else. But at the end of the day, there's an order of operations that has to be followed with regard to, is it tied to your strategy? Is it going to make more signal than noise and a substantive difference in the execution of your team or the profitability of your company or whatever? And people are rolling out there fast and loose with no idea of the answers to any of those questions.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting that I've lots of venture capitalists that I've spoken to or been around and heard their conversations, they're not investing in anything that hasn't got AI in it. So you can, to be fair to the C-suite, it means also access to funding is limited unless they can talk about it, even if they haven't worked through what is going to be the impact, because funders are not interested in the conversation unless that's what you're talking about.
You know what? I would love to give executive teams a buy on that one, and I just can't. Funders are smart people. And if you understand your company and your business well enough, you understand the ROI, both in financial measures associated with direct impact and financial measures associated with human capital, to know whether or not what you're deploying is going to make sense. But there's too many people out there that just wanted to check the box and get out there because they're getting all this downward pressure, or they've got investors who they think aren't going to listen long enough to make sure that what they're asking them to do or what they're driving them to do makes sense. I'm sorry, if you're smart enough and you've done your homework fast enough, you should be able to have an intelligent conversation with an investor. Not that you're not going to deploy AI, but that you're going to deploy AI in a way that complements your company strategy and actually does something.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's about taking a step back and stripping out and understanding your current processes
Mhm.
and how you can what will enable you to do what you're already doing rather than creating a new innovation, but to do what you're already doing and asking the question, how can AI enable me to do this faster? So
Yeah.
it's something you're already delivering. And I think it's about those small marginal gains rather than root and branch change. And that kind of transformation never works.
It is. And I have to admit, in the current environment, we don't get a lot of time. It's not like, oh, well, this is a 2-year time horizon and we're going to deliver. There's no time for that. The average tenure of a chief revenue officer is 18 months. You get 2 quarters before you're pretty much judged whether or not you're staying or not. I mean, let's face it, that's the reality. So, there's no question about being data driven. But the meme that I mentioned in some prior podcasts of think in spreadsheet, lead with humanity, you got to have your stuff together. You got to know your numbers, and you've got to know the technology well enough, maybe not you personally, but have people around you trust that know the technology well enough to know, yes, that will align with our strategy, and yes, it will deliver what it's supposed to do. I'm sorry, those are the basic rules of engagement if you have the privilege of leading a multi-billion-dollar or any revenue engine. So,
Yeah,
you got to
love
suit
it.
up.
Gotta suit up. Love it. So, Maria, where do you see leaders getting it wrong in terms of marrying the AI data with their own judgment? So,
Yeah.
bringing in the human judgment into this.
So I think there's a couple of things. They're erring too far on the strip out humanity and codify everything thing. And I get it. There's headcount issues. We're trying to optimize headcount. So there's discussions of where can we let people go, which we know is happening right now, or at minimum, we know that hiring has slowed to a significant level in most parts of at least, developed countries. So, from the standpoint of efficiencies and productivities, there's a over indexing, in my opinion, that's happening with regard to what our workforces can do and where to take a prudent, not even a prudent risk. Where should we take a risk on where not to have people? And people are getting that part wrong. That's an exercise. But I think that the first part of that exercise of the leadership thought process that's not happening is, if we're going to deploy AI, let's deploy it someplace that enables forward progress with regard to our company strategy. And at least for our first deployment, is both as impactful as it is a no regret move. So, there's no such thing as no risk in this environment, but you're not going to deploy it someplace where you could really fail hard. I even like watching companies that make a fast pass before they fully deploy on retroactive information. If you feed the AI the circumstances that happened a year ago, and its answer is what actually happened, you're probably ready for prime time. But check that box before you deploy it. So to me, just to wrap that up, I think there's an over indexing on what AI is ready to do now without human intervention, or at least you're use a flawed a use of an LLM that's flawed and doesn't encompass the type of information it has, and or not tied to strategy, and or either not a deployment that's going to substantively affect the success of the company, or has too much risk and could drag it down. So those are probably, from an executive level, the things that I think could be tripping up. And I think if you have the privilege to be in the C-suite, I would say you're burdened with glorious purpose. You're coaching. Yes, that is a Marvel line. The coaching never ends. And I think coaching your direct reports shows your direct reports that they need to coach theirs and they need to coach theirs. And it happens all the way down your reporting line. Because I can tell you right now, there is such poor first line coaching happening between frontline sales managers who just don't know how to do it because there's such an indexing on codifying everything that they don't even understand what part of judgment they need to use to help their sellers and marketers and other people in the rev engine know what to do and know how to actually think. And that is a cycle of behavior that starts at the top and goes straight through the organization. So deployment of AI that's in the wrong place and the wrong balance of technology and humanity all the way throughout the organization.
I love this. There's your conversations. There's always about 5 different things that I say, oh, I want to talk to you about that. So I really think it is really beneficial to highlight the way out of this is, and the example that you use is using last year's data, putting that into AI and seeing if it's going to give you the results of now. And that's a good way of testing, because that's what we don't always do, is just kind of like, is it rubbish in, rubbish out? Or actually, if I put some, real data in, am I going to get real sense coming out the other end? Let me test that. I love that. I love that.
And it's easy. It doesn't take time. It doesn't cost money. And anybody who goes through the 4 stages of denial that says, we don't have that data, we can't get that data is wrong. Nice try. If you had enough data to get an LLM ready, you got enough data.
Yeah, you got more than enough. And then the other great area that you brought up was about the coaching culture, which I think is absolutely critical in order to ensure that you do value the human element of everything that you do. So I'd like to kind of delve into that a little bit more. So, I know that you're passionate about this area, and especially around the kind of executive level and making sure that filters down, because it's often, well, like my team can have that done, but I won't have it done to myself. I won't expose myself. I won't be vulnerable in that way. That's not my role. So executives, leaders believe that there's value in these skills, but they don't always act on them. So where should they start?
Well, I think there's an opportunity to start with the people closest to them, both their peers and their direct reports. Again, it is sometimes hard. It is sometimes difficult to be vulnerable at that level, especially as a CRO, because whether you admit it or not, or no matter how much you love your colleagues in the C-suite, I guarantee you there's an undercurrent that says the rest of them are saying, I could do his or her job. You may not be saying that about the CRO job or the CHRO job or the CSCO job or whatever, but they're probably saying it about yours. Because after all, isn't that just charming communication skills? And yet, it is the only job in the C-suite that is measured by a hard, quantified number that everybody knows and everybody watches. Say that about the metrics and parameters by which the other C-suite executives operate. You can't. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. That's a privilege. But unfortunately, that's why our tenure is so short. And that's why it's hard to find a consigliere who can help you coach your people or help you with the peripheral vision to know when and how to do it. Now, certainly there's a vulnerability, and I never had a problem with it, although I had to develop into it, of going to your direct reports and saying, okay, full disclosure, I want to make sure I'm giving you the guidance and the coaching that helps you most. I want to have a discussion about what I should, and I've done this before. What should I keep doing? What should I change? And what should I stop? Doesn't mean you're going to do what they ask you to do, but it does mean it's going to give you some insight into you as a leader, not just a manager. It's really easy to manage. Your AI can manage. Your AI can't lead. that humanity of understanding that person, not just their role, not just their environment, but them as a person and what motivates them. I'm a big fan of the Bolden communication styles, driver, analytic, things like that. Who is that person? Who are you? Probably a driver if you're in the C-suite, but who are they? And how do you communicate them, and how do they want to receive communication to make sure that when you do coach correctly, it's actually received the way you want it to receive? So I know that's a lot to unpack there, but the first thing I would do as a C-suite executive is find somebody you can talk to that's not in your reporting line and not a peer and not your boss, and have a conversation. I'm not trying to plug me. There's lots of people out there who do this. But have a conversation about what you're experiencing and who you are and how you communicate, and perhaps the dynamic of your people. And then set up a game plan of how you're going to communicate to them based on what you know about them and what you need to go do.
I think it's absolutely crucial that you start with yourself first. And this is where your real growth comes from. And I talk a lot about North Star leadership and really understanding what your core values are. It is incredible, Maria, how many people I meet and I ask them what their core values are, and they have, no, not values, your core values. This is your compass. And without knowing that, you're going with any which way the wind comes. How crazy is that if you're in a leadership role?
Yeah.
Whereas actually, if you're grounded in your core values, because that should really be the only compass of what is right, what's right for you, what's right for, and what will be right for you is going to be right for your team as well. I think being in a leadership role, it's so easy to go with things that don't feel comfortable, but you don't always know why, because you don't understand your core values.
It's true. It's funny. I have an example of that I am been blessed to have a lot of success in my career, but there were times that were hard. Times where I screwed up, or I was expected to do something that I didn't think was the right thing. So as an executive, you do have the expanse and the control of things, but you still have a boss and you still have a board, and you don't always have the privilege of running the company or your organization the way you are expected to. If you're being told to do something by the board or the CEO, you are wise to do it, or that 18 months is going to get a lot shorter. But there were times where I was being asked to do something that I thought was not only not going to get the results that we thought it would, and it was going to cause substantive damage to the rest of the organization. As an example, especially this time of year, a lot of people out there are short of their number, and they're being told, as they get ready for earnings calls and discussions about commitments they made and prognostications they made, if they're short, why don't you go get that out of the next quarter, cut a sweet deal. Not naming names. It's happening now. I would usually be the fixer in an organization, where I would be brought in to so-called fix the sales organization that was broken, or the revenue organization that was broken. 9 times out of 10, maybe 99 out of 100, that included me entering and finding what was considered to be a pull forward behavior that was usually several percentages of global revenue. It's a crack habit that I was either asked to start or maintain. And one thing that I made perfectly clear, often at the expense of being considered too principled, was I won't do it. And not only will I not do it, when I find it, I will kill it. As dead as I would kill a lanternfly if I saw one. Like, that's know me for who I am, know my brand. I'll do a lot of things. I will never do that. And I think that's part of being principled, and again, principled core. Maybe people would say it's overly principled, but my core values of make this organization as best as it can be while being true to myself not just of what that is, but what makes that sustainable. And I've been around long enough to know that isn't. So just an example of, as an executive right now, facing intense pressure to deliver a number that may or may not be within your grasp, you've got to make a judgment call. And to your point about, are your core values where you need them to be to take a Socratic approach to what you're about to do? It's hard to be Socratic if you don't know what your inward core values are.
Exactly, because you can decide that you're going to do this, which is against your nature, but you're doing it for a reason.
Exactly.
And
let's, for a moment, I'm sorry to cut you off, but let's go back to that AI conversation.
Yeah.
Are there executives out there who said to their, even if they don't say it more broadly in their organization, but if they're saying it to their direct reports, you know what, I'm under incredible pressure to deliver something that uses AI, to deliver something that can say, when I'm looking the CEO in the eye or the board in the eye or somebody in the eye, yeah, we're using it. We've deployed it here. I'm not lying. I don't care what you do. Deploy it somewhere. I know that conversation. I have been in conversations where I've heard that said. Obviously, people aren't stupid. And whether you say, keep this in confidence or not, this is in the vault, this isn't something we're sharing more broadly in the organization, we just need to show success here. People feel it, people know it, and they're smart enough to know who's being disingenuous and who isn't. So, give your people some credit. They know that, they see it, they feel it.
They feel it. Yes, they absolutely feel it. As we're wrapping up here, I just want to touch on another brilliant phrase of yours in terms of the never normal. So what would be,
and that's a partner phrase, so I'd love to take that.
Well, you've got the Gartner badge, so I think you can borrow that one more than me. So, what's the one thing you would like to leave the listeners with? One piece of advice as they're thinking about 2026, about negotiating the never normal. How can they go forward? What would you say?
One of the things I've said before, and I really feel strongly about it, especially now, is there are points of the horizon that you should be able to watch that will give you a read of, has there been a big change out there? How big is it? And how might it affect me? Your company should know what they are. You should know what they are. Even more importantly, you should have a conversation with your people to know what they are. That might come from AI. That's a great place to deploy AI. What are those things? What should I be watching? And organization, watch the horizon with me. Because when we see this one thing or these two things or these three things, don't do more than three. These three things, do this or that. We're going to know something's changed, and we're going to need to change too. And you might even want to say, and here's what that change is going to be, because now you're building change resilience and agility into your organization. They're going to know when you know, and they're going to have confidence in you for pointing that out to them and trust in you, so that when you do what you said you would, you've created a change. I'm not going to say change proof or dare I say change resistant, but a change ready organization that can be dynamic. It's still going to be a lift. You're still going to have to coach them and adapt them and help them get there, but they're not going to be surprised. And the worst thing you can do for an organization in this environment is surprise them.
Love it. Love that. Absolutely love it. Maria, thank you so much for your insights. They're always grounded and practical. So thank you for being so generous. Everyone watching, please do make sure that you connect with Maria Bolden. You'll see in the comments her LinkedIn. If you do, if this has sparked any questions and comments, and it's often that people think of them after, when they listen to the recording or as we're wrapping up, please do post your comments in. We'll always go in and look at your comments, or ask Maria directly. I'm going to be taking a little bit of a break while I'm traveling this winter. So the next live will be in February 2026. And I'd just like to again say thank you, Maria. It's been absolutely even I'm going to have to listen to the recording again, because you said so much. There's so much to unpack and so much great insight. So I really do appreciate you. Thank you so much for being a guest on this live.
Thank you so much, Janice. Safe travels.